galactic. My Richard Soup Branson, the fuck with you bastards. Very legendary, that's a matter of fact shit. You're the opposite of stars, like rats spelled backwards. I float poems out to Saturn and past it. Easy as a standard anti-gravity backflip. Satellite tracking can't map out my tactics. I spit the same shit they split an atom in half with. No, it's not what I want, but it had to be. I spent 6 months just recharging my battery. Imagine me quitting, what a travesty that'd be. You space shuttle challengers are nothing but tragedies. So take care on the path that you're headed. I'm the father to your style, don't you ever forget it. I don't drop mics, only let it smoke where I said it. And I don't play, even when they press it. Get it?
Way Off Topic Radio, back again, guys. What is going on, everybody? I have a guest on with me, just me and him tonight. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Wall, author of a new book that just came out. Mike, floor is yours, sir. Tell him about the book that just came out, buddy.
Yeah. So it's called Out There, and it's mostly about the search for alien life, but it also talks about kind of human spaceflight and like where we're headed. You know, can we colonize Mars, and if so, how? Could we go interstellar? And just some other little odds and ends, like is like time travel possible? Like what would happen to us if, like as a species, if we colonize Mars or go interstellar? How would it change us? So yeah, it's just it's a bunch of questions that are just sort of interesting to ask about space and what's out there, and that's kind of what the title's all about, I guess.
That's awesome, man. And the book basically, like all those topics, is basically what I pretty much surround myself with learning about every single day. I swear, I'm so interested into it. So when I had found you from now. The story you had written was the Falcon 9. I guess in the Dragon capsule there was some sort of a mold issue with the mouse food or something.
Yeah.
So
they actually had to push that launch back by a day because the mouse food. There are these mice going up to the space station for an experiment, and their food got moldy, so they had to actually postpone the flight for a day, which is pretty crazy.
I mean, it's got to that's making Elon Musk making history every day.
Yeah, and it's like, you think about all the stuff, all the stuff you have to do to get a rocket to launch, and all the technology you have to master, and then you have to stand down because there's mold on the mouse food.
I know. Did speaking of standing down, did the Delta IV ever take off, or have they rescheduled that yet?
They aborted with 7 seconds left in the countdown, and then I just checked Twitter an hour ago, and they still hadn't announced when the new kind of target date was. So yeah, I'm not. That's going to be a spy satellite that we know nothing about. It's like an NRO satellite, National Reconnaissance Office. So they don't ever tell us anything about what they do. So it's just, that's the story. We just are about to launch a spy satellite. We don't know what it's doing or where it's going, but it'll be up there at some point.
Zuma 2.0.
I don't know. Hopefully it makes it to orbit, unlike Zuma. Well, although there are some conspiracy theorists that think Zuma is up there and that the whole crash is a cover story because the government doesn't want us to think it's up there doing stuff. So I don't really buy into that, but there are some people who are conspiracy minded.
As far as SpaceX is concerned, it was a successful launch to them.
Yeah,
and whatever JPL did after that, it's their problem. If they did,
it was like Northrop Grumman. They had the stage, or they developed some like deployment device that apparently didn't work on the Zuma launch. So yeah, I mean SpaceX's launch went well, but apparently they like traced the problem back to that like deployment device that like Northrop Grumman did. So yeah.
And it's just weird that Elon Musk would even let them do that. Like it just seems so out of character for SpaceX.
Yeah, it was probably built into the contract. It was like a military launch, so it was for the U.S. government. So it was probably a condition of the launch that the contract that they negotiated with the government. And I mean, I imagine those military contracts. They're really hard to get. I mean, SpaceX worked really hard to get them in the first place. And they're obviously worth a lot of money because if you can get into the business of like launching like multi-billion-dollar spy satellites, it's that go up fairly regularly. That's a pretty good business to be in.
Tell me about it. I mean, literally, SpaceX this upcoming calendar year, it's 50-50 ULA and SpaceX. I mean, for the first time ever, and that's great. And one man sat in front of Congress, challenged ULA sitting right next to him without even successfully setting off a rocket, and changed the rocket industry overnight. Amazing.
Yeah, he's doing, and they've actually landed more than like 30 Falcon 9 first stages now, which is really crazy when you think about it. Like I remember writing a story about the first one that landed. That was just 3 years ago. And now there's 33 of them, I think, or 32, something like that. And they've like reflown, I don't know, 17 of them, something like that. I mean, it's like around that number. And it's just like,
and one of them 3 times.
Yeah. They actually just like relaunched one for the second time. So it's flown 3 times now. And that's the stuff. I mean, it's like when you say that, like you surround yourself with this stuff in space, it's because it's really cool. There's a lot of really exciting stuff going on now, and that's definitely part of it. There's like Elon Musk and Jeff, Bezos also is pushing out. He's more under the radar with his space company, it's called Blue Origin.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't done like a bunch of orbital launches yet, but they're also doing reusable rockets and flying under the radar a little bit more. But there's a lot of cool stuff going on that could hopefully change things in a big way in the near future.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and we can even, you can even go as far as over to Rocket Lab with their Electron rocket. I mean, everything is literally 3D printed. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that whole small satellite market's really opening up too now. So actually Rocket Lab is launching for like $5 million per launch, and that's like a whole new space and a whole new like opportunity for. I mean, you can be like a university research group and afford to put a satellite on that rocket. If you kind of spread it out among some other people, and you say there's like 20 different groups that launch a little satellite on that rocket, and you like spread the cost around, that's like really manageable. So yeah, we're going to see a lot more of that in the next like few years or so.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I've watched the live stream of Rocket Lab. I've watched the live stream of Bezos. I've watched the live stream of ULA, and I've watched the live stream of SpaceX. And you really get a sense of the levels of where these people are. It's like SpaceX is. I'm sorry, but SpaceX is at the top. They're destroying everybody. ULA is very like. I mean, if you had a glass of chalk and then you drank that, that's ULA. They're so dry, but it's still kind of cool. But they're dry as dry can be. I mean, the live stream isn't. I mean, because nothing's reusable.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, wait till you see this $85-90 million worth of garbage we're about to create.
Yeah, they do. They've been doing the same thing well for a long time. Like they're like very dependable, but they're not. Yeah, I mean, if you talk about who's pushing things forward and pushing the envelope, then like you got to talk about SpaceX, because they're like changing the game. They're making other companies think about how to reuse their rockets to make things cheaper to compete with SpaceX. I mean, SpaceX launches cost like $60 million, for like, and that's like, I mean, yeah, 3 or 4 times cheaper than like a competitor. So it's got people trying to innovate to match with them so they can actually compete price wise.
Yeah, I mean, like, and literally, I mean, we're talking like no more than what 5-6 years ago, it was 450 million to launch anything you wanted, and now it's in the 80 subs. So
yeah, it's totally different now, and just like we were talking just a minute ago, I mean, if you have a little satellite that you want to launch, and you can launch, you can get a hold of an Electron rocket. I mean, Rocket Lab, you can get it up for 5 million, and it'll take you to orbit and everything. I mean, so yeah, it's a lot different than it used to be, and that's all happening like really fast.
It's almost like it's like overnight almost, it seems. I mean, obviously it's not been overnight, but I think you know, the successful launch of Falcon Heavy, I think really, you know, put a microscope on this whole broader range of, you know, the general public really looking into what everybody's doing. And I think ULA is looking very bad by this, but you know, by you know, Falcon Heavy taking off and doing what they did, and basically outdoing their you know, Delta IV rocket, which is their most powerful rocket, obviously. But
Yeah. Well, now we have like a Tesla Roadster out just like orbiting the sun with a mannequin in it. Like, it's just like take a minute to appreciate how weird and cool that is. Yeah, it's like if like an alien cruises through our solar system and manages to intercept that thing, that would be, they would learn a lot about us. From it's like, wait, what is this? Where did it come from?
boy, did they pick the wrong tire compound.
Yeah,
You know, it's like, oh man. I mean, like,
yeah,
literally, the only thing that's going to be left is like this, just like the shell of a car and a spacesuit.
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
It is. It's probably going to that the Tesla. I mean, people have computed its orbit and tried to figure out what's going to happen to it. Yeah, all that. I mean, it'll get ravaged by deep space radiation over time, but it's also going to eventually slam into either Venus or Earth, probably in the next 10 million years or so. Nobody really knows when or which planet it's going to hit. Probably Earth, but yeah, in like a couple million years, maybe out to 10 million years, it's going to come back around again and hit either us or Venus.
yeah.
So,
It's kind of crazy. We just kind of put a near Earth object right into orbit.
yeah, yeah. There are some people who are kind of mad about it actually, because you know it was not sterilized before launch, and so they like worry that if it hits a potentially habitable world, like maybe it lands, like smashes into Mars and like hits in one of those places where there's like an aquifer close to the surface, then maybe some Earth bacteria could get onto Mars and spread and screw stuff up. There are some people who are a little upset about that, but I mean, chances of that happening are pretty slim, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really nil. I mean, there's a lot of space out there. I mean, like, honestly, like, I think the coolest part of that entire thing, the whole Spaceman live feed, was seeing just literally how far the moon really is. You know,
Yeah.
because like every once in a while it would turn, and this little bright dot, real quick, it would like come up, like kind of the top of the screen, and kind of come like this, you know.
Yeah.
And unless you knew what you were looking for, you really wouldn't catch it. But if you saw it, you're like, that's the moon? Really? And
Yeah,
it's
it's super far away.
oh my
It
goodness.
takes 3 days to. Yeah, like the Apollo missions, it took them like 3 days to get there in a spaceship. Like it's crazy, you know. We like look up at it and it looks so close, you can almost like grab it. But yeah, it is. It's deep space.
Yeah, I mean, like, people really don't appreciate just like how much our atmosphere really amplifies what we're looking at, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you know, the sky is one gigantic telescope, really.
Yeah, yeah, and it's what makes the stars twinkle. So if you find that cool and like romantic, then say thank you, air.
Exactly. That's so cool, right? Now, yeah, I don't even know where to start. We just touched on so many different things. I don't know where to go back to. What's the most like? I mean, what's the one thing on your mind right now? Like say today, that was going through your head.
Well, yeah, I mean, just if we're kind of talking about, I mean, what's exciting and what's going on right now, I just keep going back to kind of like the alien life search, and that's kind of what most of the book is actually about. And we're talking about what cool stuff's going on in spaceflight, and that's sort of, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the alien life search right now too. And like the past 10 years have just been crazy for all the stuff we've learned and all the optimism that's been generated by what we've learned.
Yeah.
Like just in the last 10 years, basically, I mean, NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, people might have heard of that. It just died like about a month and a half ago, after being up in space since 2009. And it basically, it found almost like 3,000 planets, and they're like still going to pull a lot more out of its data sets. You know, scientists are still going through it. And what Kepler showed, that was like pretty much every planet, or like every star, like on average has at least one planet. And I mean, most of them have like quite a few more. I mean, at least a few. And about 25% of every star has a planet that's kind of like Earth in the habitable zone, which means like that just means like it's the right distance for the world to not be too hot or too cold. It could have liquid water on the surface. Mm-hmm. That's crazy if you just take a step back and think about that for a second. There are probably 100 billion stars or more in the Milky Way. Nobody knows for sure how many, which is kind of crazy to think about too. But there's probably about 100 billion stars in our galaxy, and if 25% of them have a possibly Earth-like world, that's 25 billion planets that might be capable of supporting life. And it's just like, then you just start thinking, well, what are the odds that all of those 25 billion planets are just dry and dusty and totally lifeless like that? I mean, you start playing this numbers game and it just gets crazy. I mean, it seems really weird to think that every single one of those planets is lifeless. And then yeah, I mean, you start thinking about, well, like, what does that mean? What could alien life look like? And all this stuff, it kind of gets your mind going crazy. And then like you look about what's happening closer to home too. In the last 10 years or so, we found out a lot about our own solar system. Like, we know there are these ocean moons in the outer solar system. I mean, Jupiter's moon Europa is a famous one. It's got this ice shell, but underneath it, there's this huge ocean, this like salty liquid water ocean that's got more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. And there are a few other these moons that have these these buried oceans too, and these could have life. And so all this stuff this is kind of new, like, information for us. And so you take that into account, it's just like all these exoplanets, and our own solar system looks like it could have a lot of habitable worlds. It's just like, yeah, it's just really exciting. So I mean, I guess that's what I would think about, I think.
Yeah, and then if you take just, different places on our own planet that we didn't think life could even exist.
Yeah.
And you go down to the bottom of the depths of the Mariana Trench, you don't think the pressure down there could even sustain life, and look, there's life. You go to these hot vents, there's no way. Up there they are.
That's actually a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
It's that we're like realizing how tough Earth life is and how many different habitats it can live in. And so we're starting to think about, well, this place that we didn't think was habitable before, I mean, this planet or this moon might actually be habitable because Earth life is really tough. That's like a huge part of this rethink that we're undergoing now. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, did you happen to catch that Netflix movie, the Europa Report?
Yeah, I actually saw that. Like, I remember writing a story about it because I also write for Space.com, and when that movie came out, they asked us to review it and watch it and stuff. And I actually thought it was I thought it was pretty well done. I thought it was pretty cool.
I loved it. I did not expect the end. Did you?
No.
I'll tell you what, I did not expect that end, and like the ending hit me in such a way. I was just like, holy shit. Like, if that
yeah.
like it, and it the thing of it is, it could very well possibly be true. Now, not happening like that exactly, I'm not saying that, but just the implication of that, what that ending of the movie, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, go watch it. Netflix, Europa Report, you'll love it. Just the implications that that is a possibility changes everything. It changes everything. I mean, literally, I mean, like, I can't even begin to start what it changes, honestly. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, what like the biggest implication would be is if we find life on another world in our own solar system, and we can show that it's like it's a second Genesis. It's like it's not related to us. So like life started independently there and here. If like life started independently in two places just in our own solar system, and it's got to be everywhere. I mean, it's like it's not hard for it to happen. It's got to be widespread across the universe. Like that would be the huge implication of that, or probably, I mean, in my mind anyway. Yeah.
I mean, like just off the top of my head, like, you know, we got Europa, Enceladus. I know has an ocean underneath of it, right?
Uh huh. Titan probably does too. Saturn's biggest moon, Titan.
Right.
Subsurface.
Yeah, with the methane lakes and everything. That was a really cool picture with the lander when it came down, and how it seen the lakes and where it. I mean, they got lucky that it even landed on something hard. You know,
it didn't sink into one of those. See, that's crazy too. And like I mean, 10 years ago we put a lander onto Saturn or onto Titan. Like, that's nuts. I mean, a lot of people probably don't even realize that, but it's super cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Like, everybody's finding out about this stuff, and really, it was all thanks to the Falcon Heavy and the amount of just buzz that it created. And now everybody's just, you know, trying to find out all this information about everything else that they could just possibly sink their teeth into, and they're realizing, holy shit, you mean we've known about this long? It's like, well, yeah, you're so immersed into the news. This is positive. They're not going to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it's like kind of funny, right? I mean, people, it's not like an original observation, but like, I mean, we have all the knowledge of the world at our fingertips, and we don't use it very well. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people use it just to do social media. I mean, it's like, not there's anything wrong with Twitter and Facebook and stuff, but yeah, there's like this wealth of knowledge at your fingertips, and if you seek stuff out, you'll find some pretty amazing things. Like, there is this opportunity that people have, and they don't take it very much.
No, you're definitely right. But I mean, but on the other side, it's really created I think I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. I'm like, you know, we're talking about colonizing Mars. We can't even get along with Mexico, but we're going to go to Mars, right? We're all going to be a big harmonious group of human beings, right? You know, we're the human species, and we're gonna you know, populate another planet. We need to become a single, you know, united planet first before that happens. And I really hope that happens. And I've just been seeing us go further away from that mark than closer lately. So it's been worrying me a little bit.
I think that a lot of that is to do with social media. Again, it's not like I'm not the one who figured this out, obviously, but it's like, I mean, a lot of people have done research about it. Like, if you are in this echo chamber, either on the left or on the right, where all you do is consume news that reinforces your opinions and your biases and all that stuff, then you get entrenched, and you don't like to read stuff that contradicts your opinions because it doesn't feel good to feel wrong.
Right.
And then so you just get in this bubble, and you never leave that bubble. And that's so much easier to do when the news feeds are tailored to your search histories. Like, Facebook does that. Twitter is not as bad, but yeah, I mean, so all you're encountering, or all you want to encounter, is stuff that just reinforces what you already believed, and you just get so entrenched. And yeah, that's a huge problem. It's like, it's really hard for people to talk to each other in a civil way. And then when you take it's like we were talking about this off air, but it's like it's so easy just to be a dick on the internet, to be on
really
social.
Is.
Like, I mean, you don't realize a person you're screaming at over Twitter is an actual person. You would never do that to their face unless you were worried about or you'd be fine with getting socked in the nose or something, right? But you just have, I mean, it's sort of, people think it's like a license to be a dick because there's this barrier between you and reality. But there is a real person on the other end, and like, try to keep that in mind, and don't do stuff online that you wouldn't do in real life, so. But yeah,
treat people the way you want to be treated. That's what I always say.
It's like not that hard to keep it in mind. But it's really interesting talking about colonizing Mars. And I mean, what's really funny, I mean, that's not too far off. Hopefully, if like Elon Musk and SpaceX do what they want to do, I mean, that's the whole reason he founded SpaceX, and he said that forever, was to like make Mars colonization possible, feasible, whatever, and make that happen. And like, it seems like if that's what's going to happen, and hopefully it will in the next 15 to 20 years or something. I mean, I don't know if I'm as ambitious as he is with his timelines. I'm not. But if it does happen at some point, which I wouldn't be surprised, then it's going to happen kind of like piecemeal, and we're not going to have this grand like this like United Nations chosen mission or anything. It's going to be people who pay for the trip. And so it's going to be like, I mean, we're not going to have all our shit together before we do it, because people are just going to do it. Like, that's kind of how the West was colonized in the U.S. People just get on the railroad and just go and carve out a patch of land. And that's probably what's going to happen. And that's going to be really interesting to see how that works, because that's going to be, there's huge implications of that. You got to worry about, we have to do it in the most responsible way possible. And like, who actually owns, can you own Mars? Like if you go there, can you own a patch of Mars? Like, how does that work? How clean do the spacecraft have to be there? Because we want to minimize the chances of taking Earth life there and having it, if there is Mars life, which some people think it might still exist underground and stuff, then we don't want to destroy it before we even discover it, So there are all these things that we should think about before we actually do it. But yeah, we aren't good. We aren't good at thinking about stuff before we do it as a species,
and when we do, it's like it's front and center in news, like because when they when they shot the Cassini probe into Saturn, everybody was like, why are you going to do that? It's like to disintegrate it so there's no chance of it crashing into one of the moons, and then our scientific experiments of whether there's life on here or not, we find bacteria. Oops, well, that was the probe that crashed into it, right?
Yeah. So, and I mean, you don't even have to care that much about potential microbes on Enceladus to think that's a bad idea. Even from like just we would want to know what we're discovering, right? Because what if we discover microbes there and they're related to us? Then we would want to know that they got there on their own and that they weren't delivered by one of our probes, because that would, then we wouldn't be able to understand what we just found if we weren't careful with our spacecraft and how to dispose of them and stuff like that. So yeah,
exactly. So that's what I was trying to tell everybody, like why it was doing that. I'm like, no, they did it on purpose, and and not only, I mean, we got a lot of great data out of it. I mean, like just the sound going in between, the A gap of the rings was just awesome, Yeah,
it actually did that was such an amazing mission. Like I really missed Cassini, and it had to go. It was out of fuel or like almost out of fuel, and they did the responsible thing. Just like you're talking about, but that mission was so awesome. And even in its last days was just awesome. It did like 20 dives between Saturn's rings and the planet just over and over again, and just like sampling that space, which had never been sampled before by any spacecraft, never visited. And yeah, it was such an amazing mission. And yeah, like now it's gone.
Yeah. And I mean, what did you think about New Horizons? Did you think that was even really it was cool. Yay, there's a heart on Pluto. Oh, congratulations, you flew by a comet. That's all you did. That's the frozen ice that you see. That's the tail. If it was any closer to the sun, everyone, it's just a comet. That's all it is.
It's a lot bigger than a comet, though. It's pretty big. It's like 1,500 miles wide or something. So I'm a fan of New Horizons. I think being out there in the realm, my own personal biases. I want astrobiology missions. Like I want to go look for life places, because I think that's like the biggest question we can answer as a species. Not like scientifically, that's like the most interesting question to me.
Definitely.
But I think also just getting to know our own solar system is pretty awesome. And I mean, Pluto was so far away that even, I mean, like, yeah, like the best Hubble pictures of it, it's just like this blur of pixels. I mean, you can't even tell what the hell you're looking at, basically.
Yeah.
So sending a probe there to see what it is and to see what, and there are all these dwarf planets out there in the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune. And so to actually, there's a lot of these worlds. So to get an up close look at one of them is pretty cool, I think. And, yeah, like there's a big milestone coming up. Like actually New Horizons is going to fly by another object on like New Year's Day.
Yep.
It's this thing that's 1 billion miles beyond Pluto, and it is really small. It's like 20 miles wide or something. So it's not going to be like Pluto with all these giant mountains and glaciers and stuff. But it'll still be cool to get a look at it close and see what this thing looks like.
I mean, I think anything, of up close with like, really good, I mean, really good photos of it. It's worth something. It doesn't matter how big, small, what it is, or anything. I mean, Cirrus is really interesting to me. With the lights on it. It's not really lights. I mean, I forget what they said. It was like salt composites of some sort.
Yeah, it was like evaporated water, and what got left behind was those salts, which is pretty cool in itself because it means that there was water underground, and there actually might still be. So yeah, I'm serious. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting. It just in itself. I mean, and it's actually pretty close. I mean, if I remember correctly, isn't it between like Mars and Jupiter? I think, in the asteroid belt.
It's basically it's the biggest object in the asteroid belt. It's almost 600 miles wide, but it's in the asteroid belt. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Now, do you think the asteroid belt is a planet that was destroyed?
I don't think so. I think it. Yeah, I mean, I think most scientists think that it's like the kind of like leftover rubble from the planet formation period. So it's like the little like odds and ends that didn't get sucked up to form planets like Earth and Mars. And I think they were sort of shepherded into their current place by Jupiter's gravity, because Jupiter is just so huge.
Yeah.
Its gravity is so strong that it just shapes everything and kind of holds them in that orbit. But yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure because back in the day when the planets were forming and there were lots of these things flying around, these little bits and pieces that didn't make it into planets. So I mean, there were all these giant impacts back then. In fact, there was one, like, I mean, right after our Earth formed, we got hit by a Mars-sized planet, and and all the material that got blasted off that is what it coalesced in space and formed into our own moon right now.
Yep.
So that happened about 4.5 billion years ago, and so those giant smash ups definitely did happen, and they happened a lot more back in the day than they do now. But yeah, it's a very violent history in the solar system.
Tell me about it. I mean, it really is. And then you got the Kuiper Belt, the same thing. I think, just a lot more rubble. Just there was a star. I can't remember exactly what the star was called, but they had observed the rubble disk around it, and then it was like 13 years later they went back to look at it, and the rubble disk had totally disappeared and had coalesced into planets, and they were like, "Well, that's way too fast. What just happened?" Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't remember what the star's name is or anything, but there's so much stuff that we see when we look at things, like, and it's puzzling, and we don't and that's part of what I mean. Kepler, like to go back to the exoplanet stuff, like,
yeah,
it taught us that our own solar system is like not really all that normal. Like, there's so many other systems and so many other planets that we don't have in our own solar system. Like, yeah, like the most common planet out there is probably this thing called they call it a super Earth. So it's basically about twice as big as Earth, but it's not quite up to like a gas giant like Neptune. Right. So those things are like really common all across the galaxy, but we don't have any in our solar system. And it's like really common too to have these like big like Jupiter-like planets orbiting really close to their stars. They call them hot. Yeah, they call them hot Jupiters for obvious reasons, because they zip around their stars in a matter of days or weeks.
Yeah. So
there's giant gas balls that are like super hot, and some of them are so close to their stars that their whole atmosphere is just being blasted away. And so there are all these like I mean, anytime you like look up and look out and you study something well, you like see something that's like, whoa, that's crazy. We don't have that here. What does that mean? And
Yeah.
so yeah, we're just always getting surprised.
Yeah, and it's just like, we start thinking that, gas giants normally form a lot closer to their star, and then we find TRAPPIST B, and then we find the TRAPPIST star, and that just kind of throws a wrench into that whole thinking. We're like, wait a minute, there's,
Amazing.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
And there's seven rocky planets around this tiny little dim star that's barely the size of Jupiter.
Yeah.
And it's pretty close to us. It's about 40 light years away, which is really far, but really close compared to everything else.
Well, yeah, in like space terms, sure.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, I mean, like our Milky Way is about 100,000 light years wide. So if you're talking 40 light years, that's our own backyard. And there's seven of these rocky planets there, and some of them might be habitable. Some of them might be in the right place to have liquid water on their surface, and so that's just crazy. And that, I mean, people didn't think that like a tiny star like that could have seven planets. Like nobody had ever seen that before. That was just like a year and a half ago or something that they discovered that. So
yeah, I remember when it kind of came out. I went, really? And apparently they're all tidally locked to each other. So
yeah,
and
that's an interesting thing. Like, yeah, that's an issue for talking about habitability. I mean, tidal locking, for people that don't know, it's what you see in the moon. If a planet or a moon is close enough to its star or its planet, then like the gravitational pull just kind of locks it so that it only ever shows the same face. So, for instance, we only ever see one side of the moon. That's called the near side. And there's a far side that we never see. So there are a lot of planets like that too, where they're close enough to their star, they're tidally locked. So there's one side that's just always getting blasted by starlight, and there's one side that's just always dark. So, I mean, there are some people who think that means life couldn't really like get going there because it'd be too hot on one side and too cold on the other. But there are other people who think, well, if you got an atmosphere, it can move that heat around and things could be okay. So,
or I mean, it could barely be surviving on the Terminator line of each one,
Right. True. There's that little Goldilocks zone where the two sides meet that could be nice. So yeah, But yeah. We don't have any of those planets in our own solar system, so we just have to kind of guess.
Exactly, and it's all a guessing game, really. And like another thing with like New Horizons, I mean, it's the fastest thing we've ever created as humans. So I really think sending it out to Pluto and how fast we got out there was also, I think another step towards, how fast we can travel,
Yeah. I mean, it got out to Pluto in about 9 years. It launched in 2006 and flew by in 2015. So that's pretty. I mean, Pluto is really, really far away. So that was pretty impressive.
Extremely far.
Yeah.
And I mean. And that was pretty amazing. I mean, honestly, it was pretty amazing when I mean, everybody has their favorite planet in the solar system. What's yours?
I mean, like apart from Earth, because Earth is pretty awesome, I think. I mean, like I'd probably say Saturn, just because Saturn is just so beautiful in itself with the rings and the atmosphere patterns and all that. But like you also have all these moons, and a lot of the moons are really cool. And yet, you got Titan, which might be habitable, and it's crazy. You were talking earlier. It's got these. It's so cold on Titan. Saturn's really far away from the sun, so it's really cold out there. But on its surface, Titan's got these lakes and seas, but they're like liquid hydrocarbons. So it's like methane seas, and it's like it's like minus 200 and like 90 degrees Fahrenheit on Titan. So they can be liquid out there. Hydrocarbons can be liquid in that temperature. And it's possible that like some kind of weird life form could take root in that, because I mean there's all these like organic chemicals in the atmosphere and raining down onto the surface, and complex kind of carbon containing compounds. That's what life springs from. At least that's what happened here on Earth. And there's lots of energy out there in the atmosphere. Yeah. So it's possible that there could be some kind of weird life going on out there. And then like you've got a baried ocean underneath that, which scientists think is actually liquid water. So you have like an Earth-like habitable environment with a dark buried ocean, and then this weird life environment maybe on the surface. And like then you've got Enceladus, which is this tiny moon. It's only like 300 miles wide, but it's got an ocean too underground, like a liquid water ocean under its ice shell.
Yep.
And it's got geysers blasting off it. I mean, if like you guys, if like listeners have never done a Google image search for Enceladus, like you totally should, because there are these pictures from the Cassini spacecraft that just show these geysers blasting out into space from the South Pole of this bright little moon. And there's so much of it, in fact, that that's what makes up Saturn's E ring, is all this plume from Enceladus.
Yep.
And like these geysers are coming from the ocean, from the buried ocean. So it's really, there are scientists who are working on like mission plans to actually fly through that plume with life detection equipment to see if there's like little microbes from the ocean they can catch in space.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't even have to land on Enceladus to do that. Fly through the plume. Which would be awesome.
Is that the moon with the four with the four cracks that they call the tiger stripes?
Yeah,
right on.
It's beautiful, man. It's an otherworldly, just like amazing place. There's some awesome photos of it. And yeah, actually, I mean, Cassini flew through that plume, that geyser plume, but Cassini didn't have life detection kind of gear aboard, so they actually found complex organic chemicals and stuff like that, but they were not equipped to like look for signs of life, biomolecules, or they didn't have like a little microscope on board where they could look for little like cell wall structures and stuff like that. So it'd be cool to go back there and fly a probe through it that could do that stuff, because it's very possible. I mean, if there's life in that ocean, it could get blasted out into space, and we could catch it and we could look at it.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, like, and then if it comes to the surface and then freezes, we can just go right there and we get like a orbiter around it, and take some really high resolution pictures of the surface. Who knows what we can find.
Yeah, and people want to do that on Enceladus and also on like Europa. Europa might have a plume too. It's not like constantly blasting like Enceladus's geysers. It's kind of like they like think it's there, but it's like harder to spot.
Right.
And so if like NASA is working on a Europa mission. It's a flyby mission, but they also want to do this like the kind of after that mission gets off the ground. They also want to do like a lander mission to Europa where they would like hopefully land and do a life detection kind of search, and they'd be looking for molecules, kind of biomolecules that might be falling from that plume back onto the ice. And they would dig into the ice a little bit, because like Europa, it's pretty powerful radiation on the surface. Jupiter's got this really powerful radiation belt, and like Europa goes right through it. But if you dig a few inches into the ice, you can probably find stuff that's pretty well preserved. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they still haven't been able to recreate that like rusty kind of color that's kind of on the side of it. They can't figure out what kind of combination molecules would even create that. And some people are saying that Io's volcanoes that they're spewing out into the atmosphere there is like kind of sticking to Europa. I don't know if I subscribe to that. Do you?
No, it's pretty hard to know exactly what's happening. Yeah. What it probably is, at least from the people that I've talked to, is like just like all that radiation, it kind of like discolors like the salt in that ice that comes up in the cracks and the fissures, and I mean maybe from the plumes, but those cracks in the ice where you see those brown lines, they like follow cracks in the ice where maybe seawater has come up or has kind of bubbled up, and it's all discolored like brownish gunk there. And scientists think that it's like the like powerful radiation from Jupiter that's like it's like changing the salt's color basically and turning it brown. But yeah, nobody knows like for certain what it is, but that's sort of their best guess.
Yeah, I mean, and what's cool is like, in our lifetime, we are going to find this stuff out in the next, what do you say, like 2 decades tops, you think?
Like, I would think so. I mean, like the Europa Clipper mission, which is that like flyby mission I was just talking about, that's supposed to launch in like the early to mid 2020s. So say it gets off the ground in 2025, it'll get out to Jupiter in the kind of early 2030s. And then, yeah, that's far away, but not that far away when you're talking about space missions and stuff. So, and then, yeah,
we were probably saying that about New Horizons in 2006 when it was going to Pluto. It's like, oh, that's so far away. It's like it already happened.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. That was 3.5 years ago. That like the Pluto flyby. That doesn't. It's hard to believe it's been that long already. But yeah.
I know. I mean, and it's just like, and the more we find out, the more questions we have, and that's what's really cool about science and space and all that, and just the more we find, the more questions that we have after we find it, because always being surprised.
Yeah, and one of the questions, we're talking about alien life and all that stuff I just said about how it seems like we can't be alone in the universe and like all these habitable planets and all that, but yet we haven't found anything yet, and that's the biggest question, right? It's like the whole Fermi paradox thing. Where is everybody? If there are all these habitable planets and if life can get going without too much trouble, which seems like it's true because life got going here on Earth like pretty much as soon as it could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, life got going here about almost 4 billion years ago, which is pretty much as soon as Earth cooled down enough to have like liquid oceans and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it seems like there's all these habitable planets and Earth life got going so fast, it seems like life's not that hard to do, then why haven't we seen anything yet or found anything yet? So that's a big question.
But like then like the back of that is like, say you're on a rock just like this in the Andromeda Galaxy, the closest one to us, and you look this way. Are you going to see anything from us? Probably not. I mean, how much of an imprint are we really putting out there? I mean, and then if you take the Milky Way and you kind of like draw a circle of like all of our radio signals and everything that we've done and our imprint on everything, it's so tiny in the grand scale of things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's that we've only been sending radio kind of waves out for like 100 years or so they're only 100 light years away, and that's like a tiny fraction of the galaxy. And like another thing you have to think about is like the like timing has to work out for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like our galaxy is about 13 billion years old. It's like a little younger than the whole universe, which is almost 14 billion years old. But we've only come onto the scene as like a technological species capable of communicating in the last 60 years. I mean, we only started looking for SETI signals in 1960.
Yeah.
So what are the odds that in like a galaxy that's 13 billion years old, that two civilizations that are close by and technological are going to rise at the same time? And like we would have to, or with the right offset for their signals to travel the right distance and take the right amount of time to get there while they're alive, while we're alive. Like it's just such a small chance if there aren't that many of them out there. And so, yeah, that's like, I mean, the timing has to work out, and these signals have to cover huge distances, and civilizations have to survive for a long time. And yeah, I think that's the answer to the Fermi paradox. I mean, like my own personal opinion is that it's probably, simple life is probably common, just based on this example. There's probably microbes in a lot of spots around the galaxy, but I think, if you look at our own example here on Earth, we were microbes only for like 3 billion years. Yeah. So it's that's most of our planet history, right? And
like pretty much, if that comet never hit 65 million years ago, we wouldn't be here. So we wouldn't be, we wouldn't have evolved like we have. So a lot of things have to happen.
Yeah, there's all these accidents that have to go just right to get to us and to get to a technological species, and maybe those accidents don't happen in the right way all that often on these other planets. And maybe like most other planets that are inhabited are just stuck in that like microbes only stretch like we were for so long. Yeah. And so, I think simple life's common, but like technological life that we can communicate with is probably pretty rare. And maybe when it does come along, it kind of offs itself pretty quickly, as we've almost done a few times already. So
yeah, especially since the USSR became like no more. Oh boy, have we found out a whole lot of times where that button almost got pushed.
Yeah, it's scary to think about it. Like, yeah, it's not like. It's a pretty fragile thing.
And it wasn't even because we were mad at each other. It was just computer error.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, we think something's coming. Well, don't do anything. I mean, I think I remember reading one story where one of the Russians, first response computers just went haywire and said that there were rockets coming, and there was I forget the man's name, but he basically, and it happened twice actually. Once was a guy with missile control, and he just said no, it's not happening. It's a glitch. Don't do anything. And it happened to be a glitch. Thank goodness, because
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other one was there was this NCO on a submarine. He wasn't the captain. He was the second in command, and he had to agree with the captain to launch their nukes. And what we were doing is we were trying to surface them. We weren't trying to blow them up or anything, but we had no idea that they had a nuclear powered, or I mean like a torpedo with a nuke on the end of it, and and we're sitting there, depth charging the hell out of this submarine for like 3 days, and they couldn't talk to nobody because they're too low, and and finally, and like the captain snapped, because he was, I mean, imagine being depth charged, I can't even imagine. I mean,
It's stressful.
yeah, I mean, personally, Das Boot to me is one of my favorite movies, so I can't imagine what they went through,
Yeah.
So imagine having a nuclear, I mean, so. And this NCO, he refused to go along with the command because he knew what the Americans were trying to do, and it was almost like Crimson Tide, but the Russian version.
Yeah, no, there like there've been a few moments there where like one smart, sane person has like saved the entire world.
Yeah,
right?
and he gets no credit for it at all.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. Just like, and that's another thing. Like, well, like you were saying that, like, either we technologically advance ourselves into seclusion, right?
Yeah.
Or we destroy each other.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an interesting thought, and it's an interesting kind of like to think about where we're heading, because it's like going to be really tempting when like virtual reality gets so good that we can invent our own experiences in every way, every day. Like it's going to be really tempting just to like sit on the couch and never do anything, never innovate, never go anywhere.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of people who want to do that because it'll be really fun. And so it's like maybe there are some civilizations who did totally succumb to that. And they started looking totally inward and didn't want to explore, didn't care. Their like perfect little virtual worlds were way more inviting than anything else out there. So I mean, maybe that happens to some of them too.
I mean, and what's crazy is we are so freaking close to that. It's kind of scary. I mean, I mean, Black Mirror tackled a few of these questions in a few of their episodes. I don't know if you caught them. Did you get a chance to watch them?
Oh no.
There's a few that tackle this exact thing, and the way that they set it up, it's pretty much like, this is coming down the line. We will have to make these decisions. This is what happens if you're not smart about it. You know what I mean? This is what's going to happen if you don't respect it or take it the right way. And there was a few episodes I highly recommend you watch where you're just going to sit back and like, whoa, these people were right on the mark.
Yeah, no, I still haven't really seen much of it, but I have a lot of friends who just really love that show and really swear by it, so I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, I think like the one is the USS Callister, and that's kind of like what you were just talking about, the virtual reality thing. That's a perfect example right there.
Yeah,
and I mean, another one that just came to mind, and I totally lost it. So, don't worry about it. Where everything you see, you can record, and then you have this little remote control where you can watch it, right, and on a screen and everything. And people just got so used to, doing it, and the way people can abuse it, or how it can destroy each other's lives, because no one's perfect, right? So your significant other sees the one thing you possibly did wrong, whatever, like 7 years ago, and there it is, and then you sit there and just basically just go numb for 5, 6, 7 days straight without eating, just replaying over and over until you pretty much, just die of, eating nothing. It's just pretty crazy how they tackled it, and I just really like how Black Mirror really tackled the questions we're going to be asking soon.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. But it's definitely something we're going to be very ethical questions we're going to be asking ourselves very soon.
Yeah.
Now, do you think with SETI, going back to SETI, do you think they're searching for radio waves? They found fast radio bursts, which is very cool. Obviously they need to find something that repeats before they can really take it seriously. The WOW signal was so incredibly strong. If anybody ever is familiar with the WOW signal, I'm talking about. If you're not, definitely check into it. And once you see what the numbers and the letters really mean, you'll go, whoa. That's not
wow.
Yeah, that's not 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's a Z and a G and an H, and like when it gets to that, powerful of a frequency, that's something to. It's really something to go. Whoa, what was that?
Yeah, well, I probably never know what it was too, which is frustrating, right? People have theories about it, and there are some people who think it was just interference or it was from a satellite, but there are some other people who think that it may have been something more, and yeah, it's just never been heard from again. So it'll always just be speculation,
Yeah, maybe, or we'll get it again, right? You never know.
It's possible. It's possible.
Because personally, if I think personally, if it was from if it was interference from Earth or a satellite of some sort, we would be able to replicate it. We would be able to find it again very easily since we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't since, and when was that? 78, 79?
Yeah, 77.
77, there you go, yeah. So, I was born in 83, so, anything before 89, and I'm just lost with the, I'm sort of in the general direction, but, I'm there.
And there's another one of those, we'll never know, and kind of interesting when that Oumuamua zoomed through the solar system,
yes.
It's still in the solar system, but when it cruised by Earth last fall, not by Earth, it wasn't that close, but it was close enough for us to be like, whoa. It's just I don't know if people know that much about it, but it was this weird needle-shaped rock that scientists could tell it was from a different solar system because of the path it was on. It was totally out of the plane of the solar system.
Yep.
It was pretty obvious that it zoomed in here from somewhere else, and it did a quick loop around the sun and then zoomed back out into the great beyond, and it's cruising. It's far away now and getting farther, and so people saw that in October of 2017, and it was never close enough, and it was too small to get a good image of it. But from the all the observations that they made of it, they could tell it was long and skinny. It's shaped like a needle or like a cigar, and it's probably it might be 400 feet long or something, and 80 feet wide or something. So it's this weird shape that no comet or asteroid we've ever seen has.
Because gravity makes everything into basically a spherical shape. We've never seen anything, and normally when it is like a needle shape, it's normally very loose. It's not all one piece, and the thing was tumbling. It wasn't going straight. It was tumbling through, and the biggest I think the biggest piece of data of that really shocked me, and I think is the reason why Harvard released the paper that they did that really shocked me even more, was how it slowed down before it slingshot around the sun. And it used a gravity assist on our own star, the way we sent Voyager out, both Voyagers out, to do the grand tour of the gas giants and everything, and how he got New Horizons out to Pluto. That's how we get these, probes out there so quickly, is we gravity assist around, planets throughout the solar system. This thing gravity assisted around our own sun. It's pretty insane.
And it had these little it had these little kind of these little like accelerations too, these little movements that they detected, and that's what the Harvard paper that you're talking about that just came out like a couple weeks ago and got everybody talking. It was highlighting those. It's like, well, what are these movements? And like people, like the sort of like the kind of mainstream accepted explanation is that it's actually a comet. So those little movements are when it got close enough to the sun to have these little jets of gas and dust that kind of blast off of it when it warmed up. And those are kind of like little thrusters to move it this way and that a little bit. Yeah. And that's what most scientists think. But the like two Harvard researchers, and they're obviously, they aren't crackpots or cranks, but they're saying, well, that could be it, but we don't see any signs that it's a comet because it doesn't have a tail. It never had a tail. It didn't have a coma, that kind of fuzzy cloud around it that comets have.
Right.
And also, it should have, if it was being jolted this way and that, it should have, by these jets, it should have changed its spin, and we didn't see that. So they're saying maybe it's like a light sail, which is, we've actually done that before. Like, it's basically you take like a thin, really reflective piece of material, like tinfoil kind of, but way more high tech, and you attach it to a spacecraft, and it gets pushed along. If the spacecraft and the sail are light enough, photons will push on it, light will push on it, right, and move it. Right. And so their idea in this paper was like, well, what if it's an alien light sail? That would explain these movements. And so people that were like, yeah, well, that's a possibility. I mean, a lot of people. I was surprised by how mad a lot of scientists got about that paper. Actually, a lot of them were like upset and like, "Oh, this is irresponsible. You shouldn't be talking like this." And so I didn't think it was irresponsible at all. I thought it's like, it's
bold.
Yeah, it's
like, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, then.
It's probably not. It's probably. I mean, it's like never been aliens so far as we know. So it's probably not aliens this time. But it's like, but you really say it's not possible, right? That's not very scientific, is to just say that's not possible at all. So
it's like, look, I've seen things that the stereo forward sun satellite has seen that I can't explain. All right, I don't claim to know. I don't claim that there isn't. I'm very open minded. I don't know if you've seen these images where basically the satellite I'm talking about, right? The stereo, and so basically it's basically what the thing. I don't think they're in operation anymore. I could be wrong though. However, what they do is they detect, basically the solar rays just popping off of it and everything. So all of a sudden, they can't see it. But it was a very defined round shape to it, right? I mean, the sun is spinning. You can tell the sun is spinning. Oh boy, my battery's about to die. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Missy, where is your freaking... Yep, that's what I get for moving my MacBook. Do you want to tell them real quick where they can find your book at real quick while I plug my MacBook in?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like, you can find it at Amazon.com if you just search for my name, Michael Wall, and also Out There, which is the title of the book. And I mean, it should be. I mean, it's in bookstores too. I don't know if it's in every bookstore, but it's in a lot of them. So. But yeah, it just talks about a lot of this stuff. I mean, I talk about Oumuamua in there too, and talk about some of the stuff we've been talking about in this podcast. So if you're interested in that, then you might be interested in the book.
Oh, that was a close one. Alrighty. So basically, I went to your Twitter, and the link's right there. That's the easiest way I got it. So
yeah, that's probably true. Actually, Michael D. Wall is me on Twitter, and you can just find you can find it there, and it takes you to the Amazon link. Yeah.
Right on. Sorry about that. I've never had my MacBook die that quickly, but then again, I have never updated so many freaking updates before. Mac, what are you doing to me? And Skype, please stop screwing with your with your stuff, just let it be. There's plenty of other better recorders out there than yours.
Yeah.
Oh, brother, that's good stuff. I mean, I could talk about this for days. I really could. I mean, I can make a whole podcast out of this. I really want to be honest with you. And like, but I mean, that's a great thing about the Way Off Topic radio podcast. I mean, it's about anything, whenever, it's fun to talk about anything at all, and that's what this show's for. And that's why people love listening to it, because they have no idea what they're going to hear this week or what they're going to hear this show. So, and I jump all over the place. I hear one word and I just go. I don't know if you noticed that yet or not.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's all fine. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about with this stuff. So yeah.
There really is. It's like I don't even know where to go off next. But you know what? Like, what we were just talking about. What were we just talking about before that happened?
Stereo B and
oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Okay. So you plugged your book. That's perfect. We're really near the end. We're a little bit over an hour. I want to try to keep these about the hour. I mean, the last one went over 3 hours. That was a little bit long, but it was really good. Check it out. It was me, Phoenix West, and it was Dan from based on a True Story podcast. So definitely check them out. Phoenix West, that's Loitering Wonderland, LIWstudios.com. I'm a part of that as well, so definitely check that out. RedDragonsRadio.com, everybody go there for all the podcasts, all the really great podcasts out there that I do, that Don does, and King Falls AM is also on there, one of my personal favorite podcasts. So, at any rate, okay, got all that stuff out of the way. And Way Off Topic Radio, just drop the A off on Twitter, because Twitter sucks. They can give you more words to yell at people with, but they can't make your name longer. So, whatever. So there you go. So I just want to end this with this. So basically, what you see is you see this. Okay, just real quick. Do you know anything that I'm talking about where it's?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, where like the plasma was going into nothing, and then you seen it kind of just, and you seen the rays of the sun actually move with the wake of it, and you're like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
I look. It's like, look. I can see it's a reflective number one balloon. Okay, I can logically, they're not chemtrails. Learn physics, or they're contrails, not chemtrails. And if that was a way to brainwash you, boy, is that an ineffective way to do it. Honestly, I seen one asshole on YouTube spraying vinegar in a bottle to protect himself from the chemtrails. So I mean, I guess they're working. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much of that shit. Like the flat Earth stuff drives me absolutely.
Oh my god, I love it though.
It's the absolute worst. It's like all the stuff we're talking about, how like you have all the like knowledge of civilization at your fingertips, and you believe the Earth is flat.
Oh my god, it drives me absolutely nuts. But you know what? I have learned so much good stuff from debunkers of those fucking idiots that I almost want to thank them for being so fucking stupid that you learn things you would never learn before.
Yeah.
Because they're pulling out the science to prove them wrong. And what I love is two things. I love the science that they pull out that you learn. It's almost like the show. You don't know what you're about to hear. You really don't. You don't know what the science you're about to learn that you never thought you'd learn, and you're about to learn just how far somebody will go to create a straw man to say nope. It's because of this, and your jaw drops, and you're like, you're beyond help. Is what you are. And I just want to shout out this new channel. You gotta check it out. It's called Non Sequitur, where they have they have a flat earther, and then they have everyone else who has a brain, and they come on and and they respectfully debate each other. And I know that's very amazing to hear, but they do control it. Both parties, agree not to sit there and call each other idiots or whatever. And then the flat earther gets to spew his bullshit, perspective bullshit, this, that, or whatever. And then, the actual people with the brain gets to talk. And it's amazing how back and forth they'll go. And it's just a fun time, really. I mean, it's almost enjoyable at this point to listen to how ridiculous they can actually get. Team Skeptic on YouTube is another great channel. Simon Dan, love him. But there's so many just great channels out there that debunk these idiots. So, I mean, is there a particular flat earther that just really gets on your freaking nerves?
Well, it's just the entire just the idea, I mean, the ancient Greeks figured this out like 2,500 years ago by measuring shadows and stuff, and it's just like they were really smart. And it's like, how can we not take what they have learned and build on it? It's all the jumping through hoops you have to do to believe this shit. It's like the ice wall in Antarctica that's guarded by UN soldiers. It's just like, what are you talking about, man? Like, it doesn't.
No, it's penguins with machine guns, dude.
Yeah, true. But it's just like, and there's so much. Okay, every other planet in the solar system is round, but the Earth is flat somehow. It just, I mean,
the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in NASA is in on the conspiracy. Every satellite photo that you see is doctored. It's just like. It's just so ridiculous. And for people, I mean, I'm all for people being skeptical and trying to think for themselves.
Which you should go out and research yourself. That's the great thing about what we have at our fingertips.
Right. But you can do the flat earth experiment yourself. You can go down to if you live by the ocean, you could go down to the pier and watch a boat disappear over the horizon, and it's a round earth because it doesn't just slip away all at once. It first you see the top. And it just gradually disappears. It's great to be skeptical and to use your brain and not just receive wisdom and accept it without thinking about it. But you also shouldn't. I mean, you have to actually use your brain if you're going to do those exercises and not just believe a bunch of shit you saw on YouTube, because that's just as bad. That's way worse, actually. It's way worse to believe some clown somebody is talking. Yeah, than to believe all the NASA scientists who've ever lived. So it's just I've just been sort of because I've had to write a bunch of debunking stories about it too, and it's just been shocking. It's what? Really?
It's almost like you have to write your stories in such a way where you almost have to think, all right, could these morons take this any sort of way and twist it around to almost discredit me when I know what I'm talking about and I shouldn't be discredited, but these idiots are on there and they're just discrediting because, I mean, I don't know why, because to try to prove what they think, and they'll never succeed because the Earth is round. I'm sorry.
It's interesting because then you get into psychology too, and I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I mean it's just an interesting question about why people choose to believe in conspiracy theories and what appeals about that. What is it that drives people to that? I mean, there's probably a distrust of authority, and it feels good to feel like you're the one with the knowledge and everybody else is a sheep and all that stuff. I mean, it's just an interesting question to kind of why. Yeah.
I mean, I think Top 10 did it best. Why flat earthers are flat earthers. It was hysterical. I mean, normally you learn a lot of great stuff from him. I think his name's Simon Whistler.
Yeah.
But he did one where why it's great to be a flat earther and why we are flat earthers. It was obviously sarcasm.
Yeah.
But it was gold. It was gold. Honestly, I mean, I'm happy you said that because literally I want to do another show with you just going over these different videos, because I watch so many of them. I can't get enough of them. I really can't, because I just love I just love, like, again, learning the science I didn't think I would learn, and then hearing these idiots and what they'll come up with, and it cracks me up just how insanely far they'll go and what they'll say.
Well, yeah, well, and like they have to have the sun be like really small and really close, and it has to move in like a figure 8 pattern above the Earth to explain like kind of seasonal shifts. It's craziness, and it's just like,
It's like,
what's the simplest explanation here?
and it's like every time they're like, "Well, this is why this." Well, okay, so but NASA's fake. It's like, what does that have anything to do with what I just said? Like,
Yeah.
you never, like, they never, and that's why I love the whole non sequitur channel, because
Yeah.
they never answer what the one guy just said. I mean, it's hysterical. It's hysterical. And Team Skeptic has me in tears. He has me in tears with his videos.
Well, what's like kind of funny about it too is they believe every rocket launch has to be fake then, because
yeah, because
everything SpaceX is fake too. Yeah.
I mean, it's a live stream. I've watched so many of them. I mean, if you think it's fake, watch the live stream.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Just because they switch cameras means nothing. I mean, listen, the Himawari 8 satellite, right? It takes a picture of the Earth. What was it, every 10 minutes, I think, and you can find where you're at on the beautiful ball, and you can see the weather pattern, the cloud pattern, right? And you can go outside and look up and go, wow, that matches perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, they know that that's going to match perfectly because it's all digital. Because you see, it's just like, just stop.
It makes
like,
no sense.
And
Yeah.
and every time they go, what can I possibly say to you that will change your mind about it being flat Earth? And then they come out with these, I have to personally observe it. They're like, well, you're not a satellite. So I don't know how I could possibly do that. So
Well, they're gonna have to save up $250,000 to buy a ticket on like Virgin Galactic or something, like so they can get up and see the blackness of space and the big curvature of the Earth, which you can already sort of see if you go up high enough in an airplane. But if you get up to like 60 miles, then you'll definitely see it.
Well, it's the curvature of the window you're looking out of, and then if you're out there with no suit, it's the curvature of your eye. I've heard that one. I've heard that they've went that far using how your eye is round.
Well, then there is no evidence that would ever convince somebody. Then, yeah.
Exactly, and that's what's hysterical about it, and that's what I love about it. And how far they'll go, and it's just it's so much fun. We definitely have to do another show just dedicated to that, and just have some fun, man. Because I have a lot of different clips I can pull up, and we can we can watch them together and just laugh and have a really good time. Because that's what this show's about, having a good time, learning some new stuff, and yelling about how Neil deGrasse Tyson deserves his due process. That's all. I mean, the one was he shook her hand wrong.
I think. Well, there was one where he looked under like this like woman's dress, I believe, to find Pluto because she had a tattoo of the solar system, and there's a picture of him like inspecting her dress, and apparently he looked under her dress or inside her dress.
Yeah, but she told him she had it, like. You know what I mean? Like, and of course he's going to want it. He's the one who made Pluto not a planet anymore. He's literally the one who did it. He's the one responsible for it in a roundabout way, but he's the one who did it. I'm sorry. He's like, if you want to track back to when Pluto was demoted, it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody. That's why the whole Pluto thing was a thing with her. And then
Mike Brown, actually, yeah. There's that guy. There's a Caltech astronomer named Mike Brown. He actually wrote a book called I think it's called Why I Killed Pluto, or How I Killed Pluto, and also Why It Deserved to Die, which is a really good read. Because he found this other dwarf planet. He searches for distant dwarf planets out in the outer solar system, and he found yeah, I found a few other. I mean, Eris is one of them, Eris, which is about Pluto's size. And once Eris was discovered, it was like, oh, whoa, Pluto is probably not out there by itself. There's probably a shitload of these other worlds out there. And so,
And that's when we found the kelp about, right?
yeah. And so that's like, we realized that the Kuiper Belt has like a lot more stuff in it than we thought it did. And Pluto is just one example. And yeah, it's just really weird. I mean,
because it's basically like, the one biggest reason why it got demoted was a planet has to have cleared its orbit of anything. So, and that's why Pluto is demoted right away. I mean, because if it becomes a planet, then Ceres has to become a planet, right?
Yeah. And there are a lot of people who think that Ceres should be a planet. And people who say, I mean, yeah, and the like people who like argue for Pluto being a planet would be like, well, if you put Earth out where Pluto is, then Earth would not be a planet either, because it wouldn't clear its neighborhood. So it's like, why do
Wouldn't it though?
No, they've done the calculations. It would not clear out all those other things that are out there where Pluto is. And so, I mean, I don't know. I'm sympathetic to both views. I don't really have a huge opinion on it, but I mean, I like do think that the main rationale for demoting Pluto was that we just didn't want to have too many planets. Because it's like, well, if like Pluto's a planet, then all these other things out there have to be too.
Right.
And we're going to have like 100 planets or like 500 planets, and that's going to get too hard to deal with. So let's just not deal with it. Yeah. And so I don't know if that's like a great reason to do it, but it's funny. It's like people they feel so strongly about it on both sides. Like the people for Pluto, they're still really mad, and like the people.
It's my generation because we grew up with Pluto in our textbooks in 5th grade. That's why.
Yeah. And then there are other people like, I mean, Mike Brown and people like him are like, Pluto's nothing. Well, not that it's nothing. They like still think it's interesting, but like, why are you getting so worked up? It's just words. It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's just kind of interesting. There's just like so many strong feelings on both sides of it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and what I think is so cool is like what Pluto has a moon that doesn't spin the opposite way around it than its other moon. It doesn't have two moons. That kind of goes.
Oh yeah, and like Pluto's got one big moon. Charon is like, it's like half the size of Pluto, so it's technically it's like a double planet because
yeah, because they kind of like they orbit each other in the center. I forget what the exact word is, but it's
the center of mass is in space. It's not inside Pluto. So yeah, so technically it should be like they should be like a binary planet or a binary system.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 4 other moons of Pluto too. It's just crazy. And I mean, people think that that those moons were created by one of those big smash ups that we were talking about earlier. Like, I mean, Pluto probably got hammered by something like 4.5 billion years ago, and those got the kind of results of that huge collision are its moons today. So,
I mean,
it's just crazy.
It's almost like what didn't get hammered out there, you know?
Yeah, man, look how many craters are on the moon. Like, that's what Earth would look like if we didn't have rocks and dirt and plate tectonics and all that stuff covering it up.
I mean, and we're still finding craters. I mean, they just found one 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. There's a crater under the
Norway, right?
I
like the top of Norway, I think it was
Greenland. I think under a glacier in Greenland. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's it. That was one. Yep. No, I'm talking like it's real recent. Like maybe last week. I want to say. Like, I get Norway, and then I get, like, the Netherlands mixed up. I think they're the same or something. I think they are, aren't they? Like, Norway, Sweden, Finland. Isn't that the Netherlands or something?
That's actually Scandinavia.
Okay, Scandinavia. But I think it's like the Netherlands or something. It's like the top, it's like the north of it, and it's like about 3/4 of it's land, and the other quarter of it is in the sea next to it.
Okay.
I could see it in my head. I just can't remember the damn name of it. But it was literally like last week, and they found it from Google Earth. Go figure.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, some of the craters, like the big dinosaur killing, like the big comet or the big asteroid, whatever it was that hit us 66 million years ago, they didn't find that crater until like the 80s, I think, because it was off the Yucatan Peninsula and it was in the water, and it was so long ago that stuff had kind of settled around it. And then So there's probably huge craters like that all over the place too, and they've been erased, or they're buried.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't really know.
And like the way the plate tectonics move, and they're always kind of like recycling itself. I mean, how many craters have hit us that have they've just pretty much engulfed them? You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They get buried, or they actually dive under another plate, and you just get reworked into lava, and you never see them. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, and it just gets recycled, and that's why that's why we're alive on this planet, because everything gets recycled into something else, into
yeah.
something else, into something else, into something else, and
That's
it's just funny. It doesn't stop here. It keeps branching out and out and out, and then this sun, and then the solar system, and the solar system goes around the Milky Way in the one arm. I forget what the arm's called, but you see
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like, and then that one is around, and then galaxies start to cluster with each other, and then I mean, how much further out do you want to go here?
yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, it's cool. It's cool about plate tectonics too. Yeah, like you're exactly right. Like it's a big deal for life, and there are some scientists who think that like plate tectonics are a big reason why life got its start on Earth, or why like Earth is still such a good place for life, is just because you have this cycling of all the nutrients and all that get churned down and brought back up again. And yeah, it's like this system. It's this system that just cycles back and forth and keeps everything on the surface from getting used up and stale. And yeah, and there are people who think that if we find an alien world with plate tectonics, it's much more likely it'll have life. And that's one of the reasons actually that like actually Europa is so cool, that
hmm
Jupiter, because it seems like it has plate tectonics, but not with rocks, with ice. Because I mean,
exactly.
if you get a picture of Europa, you see all those cracks and everything, and on
hmm
the surface, and so it's got these different kind of slabs of ice, and I mean, scientists have done like a lot of simulations and stuff, and that, like based on what they see, it kind of looks like those plates are like diving under each other and spreading out, so that it's crazy, man. I mean, in our own solar system, we've probably got a moon that has plate tectonics with ice instead of rocks, and if that's true, then that could be a big deal for the possibility of like finding life on Europa, because it could take some of these chemicals from the surface, like
hmm
I mean, it could be like organics in the surface or something, and bring them down to the water underneath, and
Yep.
maybe you could get all sorts of cool stuff going on with that. So yeah, yeah, that's just another reason why like Europa is so interesting.
I mean, and plus with the salt water, the only reason why water has salt in it is from the movement of water with the and the I mean, water does not become salty unless it's moving through the rocks that
Rocks,
have
yeah,
the salt deposits in it, and
yep,
to keep that refreshing, it has to keep on going in that cycle. So that if that cycle's going, then you never know. So
yeah.
yeah.
That's yeah, it's true. I mean, rain comes down very pure, and I mean, when it flows as rivers, it picks up chemicals from the rock and saltiness, and then that
Mhm.
gets concentrated in the ocean and stuff as it dumps in, and some stuff gets evaporated off, and the ocean gets a little saltier, a little saltier. Yeah.
Yep. And then sometimes, you something happens and you have a salt flat.
Yep, you get a dried out ocean.
Yep. And then you can go break a land speed barrier with a very weird looking rocket looking.
Their rocket car.
I
You
mean,
could,
those British, man, they love doing that.
to like has somebody managed to break the sound barrier with one of those? They've gotten close, right? They gotten like 600 miles per hour or something.
I want to say they've come extremely, extremely close. I don't know if they've done it yet, but
Yeah, they're up in the 600s, which is, I mean, you got to get to 730 or something,
something
like
like
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, what, I don't want to say yes or no.
762. That's the number that's sticking out in my head.
And I was watching another great YouTube channel. It's a real engineer. It's a Irish guy, and he was talking about the wheels on that rocket car that the Brits use, where the surface of the wheel has to be like flat and not in a V, because I don't know, and it's pressed by one gigantic piece of titanium that is humongous, and by the time they're done, it's like that. It's crazy. I mean,
All the amazing engineering they have to do.
Yeah, and that's why it's on his channel, because the engineering behind it is pretty incredible.
That's cool. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, because they keep pushing it and getting closer and closer, and you wonder what they're going to have to do to.
What's going to happen when it happens? Is that thing going to hold together, or is that thing just going to explode?
There'll be a boom, and it'll be exciting.
Yeah, tell me. I mean, jets don't explode when it happens, but they are in the middle of the air, so they can dissipate. I mean, you're on the ground. Where's it going to go? You know,
it bounce off and come back right into you.
Exactly.
That's going to be kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the Falcon 9 rockets, they gotta cut off the ignition right before they land. Otherwise, the blowback will make them, kind of topple over, or one will crash into the ocean, just like the other day.
Yeah. That was surprising, because there have been so many in a row that worked out. It was sort of shocking because you could see it happening when it started spinning on the camera feed coming down. You're like, uh-oh, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, because I was looking at one fin, and it's like it's hard left, and the other fin's like, yeah, I'm just gonna chill, and it's all over the place. I'm like, I've seen way too many of these. That's not looking right. And all of a sudden they cut the feed, and I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah, that was kind of bullshit. And yeah, I mean, somebody actually called Elon out on that on Twitter. They're like, why did you guys cut the feed? Will we be able to see it? And he, I mean, to his credit, he's like, yeah, that was a mistake. And they actually posted the full video of it.
They really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only a failure if you don't learn anything from it. So Elon is now installing a secondary pump system,
right,
to take over in case the first one fails. And that just gets us closer to 100% reusability to getting people to Mars.
Yeah, and what was really interesting about that too, that they had a little press conference after that launch, and people that there was a SpaceX representative there, one of their kind of chief engineer guys, and they're asking him about what happened, and was the public ever in danger from this thing going off course? And he's like, no, our safety systems work exactly as they should, because he was explaining, the landing zone is always offshore. It stays offshore until it's clear to the onboard rocket computer that everything is fine, and only at the last minute will it move its targeted landing site onto the landing pad.
Right.
So for the vast majority of the flight back to Earth, it's actually targeting a patch of the ocean offshore, and then only at the very end, when all the systems are confirmed to be working well, will it kind of slip over to go onto the landing pad. So he's like, yeah, we were encouraged that worked perfectly, even though the landing didn't work. That's exactly how a failed landing should work. So
and because of that safety precaution, they get to reuse the rocket still.
Yeah.
So it's still reusable to me.
It was floating, and they towed it back to land, and it looked like the inner stage, the part that actually connects the first stage to the second stage. It was a little bent, but it wasn't
you just hammer that back out, That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Mike, man, this was a lot of fun, dude. Really. Really good meeting you, man. Can't wait to read your book again. You want to plug it one more time before we get out of here?
Yeah. Sure thing. It's called Out There, and you can find it pretty much, I would imagine, most bookstores. It's also Amazon.com, and you can find a link to it on my Twitter page if you go there, Michael D. Wall. And yeah, man, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
Oh, definitely, man. A lot of fun talking to you too. And would love to have you on in another week or two, and we can just kill these flat earthers and play some really funny stuff and just have a good old time. If you're up for it, I'm always up for it. So
yeah, sure.
I'm actually looking forward to that show. We're going to do some planning for that, so everybody stay tuned for that. In a week or two. And Mike, definitely really awesome talking to you about everything, man. And again, looking forward to the book. And I'll be retweeting out everything. It's at Way Off Topic Radio. Just drop the A because Twitter can suck my balls, and all that good stuff. And you guys know where it's at, RedDragonsRadio.com. So. On that, Mike, anything left to say? Because I normally just hit end.
No, man, it's been fun.
Yeah,
we can do it again.
Definitely, man. So take it easy, buddy.
Hey, thanks, man. You too.